Hello and welcome to the channel today. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different here. When I talked to a few people about my book, they said, "Hey Ron, I like the cover. It looks pretty good. The topic looks interesting enough, but give me some ideas. How do you approach this? Like, what am I going to be reading here? I like to have some idea before I spend the money and buy the book. Am I going to like it? Am I not?" And I thought, okay, here I've got an idea right here. To sort of give you an idea whether this material is going to be for you or not, I'd like to, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to read you the preface, actually, of the book. I'm just going to read it. You can get an idea of, obviously the preface gets into how and why I wrote the book and gives you an idea of my writing style. And hopefully you'll let me read this to you today. And if you find that interesting, maybe you'll consider looking up the book on Amazon. Happiness and Well-Being Through Balance and Progress, the PROWIRC method. And I've got on the picture there, which I actually photographed myself in the backyard out here one day, just playing around with some camera lenses and trying to figure out how to get them in focus, and managed to get a picture of this dandelion. And I don't know, somewhere along the line I liked it and thought, hey, I'm gonna put it on the cover of my book, which I've been working at for a long time, so here it is. Anyway, if you don't mind, I'd like to just read you the preface of this book and see what you think about that. Preface. Throughout life, there can be times when things just come together for whatever reason. We are at the top of our game and plans just fall together and progress seems natural. Relationships are fun and fulfilling and we move ahead with ease as though we can't lose. And then there are the other times. Work seems harder, things just don't quite line up, and if we aren't careful, plans get bumped off track, relationships get strained, we become mentally fatigued, and subsequently less effective. With the high rates of failed business, financial hardship, depression, divorce, and general struggles we see around us all the time, and sometimes very up close, it's obvious to even to the casual observer that the lucky rolling times or the natural states of progress and harmony don't always stick around on their own or even appear at all in some cases. There always seems to be cycles to everything, ups and downs, highs and lows, or as we'll say often in our context here, progress and regress. Simply put, whether it be business or personal, finances or health, goals or family matters, there are times when some important area of our lives suddenly sputters or dips or runs out of gas entirely. And while that area is a problem, it strains the other areas until the problem or problems grow to a point where many parts of your life can suffer, straining your overall state of well-being, not to mention your overall progress. We have all seen people start in many different positions in life, some at the bottom, some not at the bottom. They move up the scale in happiness and accomplishment, in family matters, in social circles, in business, and in leisure, and we admire their progress or good fortune or celebrity. Then we see them at a later date only to find them back in the trenches, a ground they've already covered in many areas of their life. Maybe it pertains to their business or finances, or maybe their health, or their weight, or some family relationship's gone off the rails. Or maybe it all looks good to us, but doesn't feel good to them anymore. I don't think there is a member of the human race that doesn't get that "how did I get here" feeling sometimes for whatever reason. Maybe it's a public failure or a personal disappointment, but for whatever reason, humans are prone to ups and downs, and it can hurt you personally or financially or both. And if you are not careful, some of these setbacks can cost you much of the progress you have already worked so hard for, and more. Often the pitfalls are not of our own making, as in the challenges of the recent pandemic. Many people were just cruising forward at the beginning of 2020, feeling the benefits of long-term gains in the stock market and pretty good economic times when, bam, a global pandemic had people closing their businesses and staying in their houses for months on end. This unexpected event knocked good businesses, big and small, off course, and had people worrying over the health and survival of themselves and their families. These types of things cannot always be foreseen, but one thing's for sure. In challenging times, people can use a strategy to restore well-being, balance, and progress in their lives. Fortunately, I had already been working on the PROWIRC system for several years before the pandemic. Through trial and error, and as a result, I was able to approach that very challenging first year positively and with an ongoing sense of well-being using its strategies. The reason is that even before the surprising hurdle hit, I had realized through experience that an ongoing and dependable sense of well-being could often be elusive, and all sorts of things can arise surprisingly in any year that can push you off track and at the cost of your life's progress. I had already experienced personal challenges which had in some way or other knocked me off track at different times, and I lived through ups and downs and felt the sting of negative surprises and disappointment. I had already decided several years before to review all that I experienced and had learned and to create some preventive maintenance strategies. I thought there must be a way to insulate oneself from the harsh surprises, feelings, and effects of life's cycles and roller coaster rides. There must be a way to prepare so that not only can we pull out of a dive in some area of our life when we need to, but to be aware of the surprise pitfalls earlier, to take the bottom out of the valleys and constantly check ourselves back toward progress. As a person who has spent my entire adult life in business for myself, I have had to reinvent my business self many times as markets, business culture guidelines, and technology have constantly changed. So reinventing, energizing, motivating, and fine-tuning and retuning of plans is something very familiar to me. I have consistently read books on these topics to keep myself up to pace. I have consistently re-educated myself in various areas of my business interests, re-motivated myself with goals, maintained a spirit of optimism, and thought positively as often as I could. But somehow, even with all the experience, training, all the studying, all the good systems I had tried out there designed to get you there, I hadn't really found anything specifically designed to keep you there, or even to keep getting you there. It was with this in mind that I decided to focus on this specific problem, to come up with a plan, a system, a lifestyle, whereby I could feel more regularly energized, where I could consistently experience progress in my life, not just financially, but in all areas: family, fulfillment, well-being, health, and financial. It would be a big task, no doubt, with a lot of brainstorming, reflecting, and experimenting, using myself as the guinea pig, but it seemed as though it would be worth it to enjoy a more consistent life experience of predictable progress and well-being. It was my game plan to not only develop a methodology, but to practice it over an extended period of time, to both refine and prove it to myself as a system that would really do what it was designed to do, to keep all key areas of life in a state of progress, so that progress becomes the rule instead of cycles being the rule. I wanted the method to produce a more consistent experience of progress with a dependable and regular feeling of well-being, progress in health, progress in family relationships, and progress in personal development, which would always be rejuvenating as well as infectious to others. I wanted a program where people could experience progress in their work and wealth, no matter where they worked or didn't work, and no matter what they had or didn't have to begin with. Along the way, while researching, brainstorming, planning, and practicing ideas toward the goal as stated, I made some unique discoveries of actions, activities, and mindsets that I experienced to be youthful energizers, leading to untapped areas of personal resources hidden in plain sight, which seem to have rejuvenating powers and powers of growth, which would actually raise the floor of who we are at our base and how we feel daily in our lives. These activities and actions mostly related to the regular and intentional use of the human power of creativity, which we all possess, ultimately led me to discover a very simple yet powerful concept, which is presented in the title of this book and again in the concept of the PROWIRC methodology. The concept of balance and progress in all the strategies, all the programs, and in all the ideologies I had ever studied in self-help books or seminars on success designed to inspire me for another day or week or month or year to work to a maximum productivity, no one had ever mentioned it. I had honestly never thought about it before. In fact, every idea I had ever read for success or accomplishment had promoted an almost extreme version of single-mindedness. I recognized one day, while considering all the events of my life in relationship to this objective, or quest you might call it, toward a new life strategy, balance and progress were the big keys to unlocking the entire puzzle, the keys to real well-being. Then over time, I was able to define 7 various areas in one's life which require attention to maintain balance. The purpose of the attention on the areas, I ultimately concluded, was simply to keep them in progress. And I found this concept to be a game changer. These seem to be some heady philosophies that I just sort of jumped into here in the story, but I didn't jump to them in practice or development. It was a long process to develop what I will be sharing with you here. To discover a life system, plan, and philosophy that would meet this challenge of short-circuiting the simply automatic cycles of ups and downs, or to lessen or remove the valleys, I had to also look squarely at the components of the downside, or low points of the seemingly natural cycles people seem to experience so commonly. Everyone you talk to can and will celebrate their times of accomplishment, optimism, and progress. When things are going great, it is infectious. People respond positively to you, and everything seems to fit together as a self-fulfilling prophecy of having arrived and it's never going to end. It is for this reason people often like to revel in the good old days, the hot market, the steamy part of the love affair, the football years, or when the kids were young, or going back even further sometimes to youth and the summers that never ended. If you find yourself or others you know constantly talking or thinking about the good old days, let's be honest with ourselves. That's not a sign of being at the progress end of the cycle. It is not, however, in the times of accomplishment and progress where I felt I needed to begin looking for answers. It was in the other place, where people aren't as positive, where it's 4 parts effort to 1 part results, where there isn't quite as much happiness and mild disappointments litter the background of your mind. The place where if you try to begin to analyze it too much with others, they will label you as a dark cloud and think they should keep a safe distance in case it's contagious, even though they have felt or maybe even do feel similarly. I have always found it to be true, but a true but particular part of being human, that whatever we are experiencing at any given time seems to feel that's the way it will always be. Even though we have all experienced highs and lows, ups and downs, wins and losses, it seems at the time one is going on, the other doesn't exist to our psyche as a real or heartfelt experience. When life is good and you're on a roll with any sort of progress or positive results, which could be financial, personal, tangible, or romantic, it always seems as though it will never end. How could it end? Everything seems so natural. The momentum seems so easy, and after all, we've worked for it. And all the good basics are in place, so just enjoy, because that's it for the down times. We've finally arrived. Those are great times, no doubt, and fun. But because of our peculiar human condition, that is exactly when we never look for a great life strategy to keep it going, to insulate against the downturn or potential disappointment, even though doing so could help us maintain our progress, create more progress, and prevent future downturns, regress, or even anguish. Just the way those up times feel as though they will never end, so do those tougher times, the times of struggle, the down times, the times of regress. And it is in those times, if not corrected, that the progress we have made in relationships, fortunes, security, and well-being in general can all be at risk. So I decided first to try to identify any early warning signs that progress or development is slowing, when we may be hitting sort of a flat spot before any real downturn happens. I began to make lists of what could be considered early warning clues of a potential downturn, or that we may be in a full-on downturn. Here's a hypothetical story. A person we know finds that lately at work they seem to be putting in more effort for the same results, or the same effort but feeling more tired. They get home to where the conversation is not as robust as it once was, and they can't remember the last time they and their significant other went out for an evening of fun, but that's acceptable because they've both been working more. Their kids are making less time for them, but that's fine. They have less time for the kids since putting in the extra hours and time moving money around or restructuring bills. Tonight might be a good time to finish up some paperwork on those taxes, but they are generally tired and stressed lately, and the office/family room is still piled high from the last attempt, which didn't get past searching for files and receipts. So they volunteer to get some groceries and go alone to stop at the pub for a couple of pints. Now, this little dramatized story may seem funny or contrived as it was intended, but parts of it, or all of it, or some part of it, will seem familiar to most people. There are a few points to be made of telling the story just that way. First, nothing really bad happens in the story. Secondly, the dramatized events cover many individual parts of a person's life in just a few lines. Thirdly, even though we can laugh at the commonness of this benign little tale, we can all see a few potential problems brewing, but we can't really tell if the problems are interrelated, or did one begin first and lead to the others, or affect the others in some way. If we can take even a quick moment to assess the story, we can either decide to justify the entire interaction as just the usual day-in-the-life stuff, or we can go a little deeper and pick out a few areas which seem to be a little flat, or certainly not on a progressive path. The story never identifies anything about the age or sex of the person, so this scenario could literally be about anyone in this case with a spouse and children. What were we able to quickly observe? Is there an overall feeling that this whole story is going to continue to a successful conclusion? If we are being honest, we can break it down pretty quickly. There seems to be a lack of communication now between this couple, who cannot even get interested enough to really greet each other when they get home. The career of the person who has just arrived home is described in no detail, but in such a way that we get the feeling that the enjoyment or the money or both pertaining to the career have either shortened in supply, or the situation of life may have somehow moved past the point where it was working. There's also a situation where relationships with the children have also had to take a backseat. This can also have negative outcomes, as we can imagine. There's also some disarray in the household organization, including household administration and finances. Then at the end of this short scenario, they wash it all down with a bit of avoidance or escapism. So we definitely see problems brewing in a number of areas at once. But any one of the problems could have been a starting place for others, or some of the smaller problems might be magnifying or contributing to the bigger ones. Where do we start in this benign little road to nowhere story before it becomes truly heartbreaking at many levels? How about everywhere at once? For those who can relate to this story, or any part of the points of this introduction, we'll tackle all these challenges with a system for living called PROWIRC. That is the preface to the book, Happiness and Well-Being Through Balance and Progress, the PROWIRC Method. On the front of the cover of the book, by the way, it says Ron Christopher. Now, as a publisher and as a writer, I had to register as Ronald W. Christopher, because it turned out, believe it or not, there was a number of Ron Christophers. So when you're looking up the book on Amazon, if you don't use the link, if you punch in Ronald W. Christopher, you will actually see this little picture of the dandelion I took in my backyard. And thank you for taking the time today to look at the channel, for taking the time to let me read you the preface of the book. And if you are to think that this might be interesting to you, you can feel free to go on Amazon and purchase the book. You could also look at these channels. I'm going to be going over discussing various different areas of the book and different areas of your pro work under the topics of your power, your relationships, your organization, your wealth, your image, your relaxation, and your creativity. And if you like, you could subscribe to the channel. That would really help the channel itself, and for me to get this book and the ideas of the book, out to a community. And please also hit a like on there. I think that indicates to YouTube that somebody likes it, so maybe someone else could have a look at it. Anyway, thanks again, and thanks for joining me, and have a great day.